Hello and welcome to episode 296 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. We covered all the positions so far. We talked running backs, super deep class there at that position. We talked wide receivers, very top heavy, 4 to 5 guys that we really enjoy out of this class. We talked about the quarterbacks, and as we start to dig deeper, we're talking about a position where there's going to be some guys pushed up via the draft, and that's going to happen. But now the most underrated position of this draft class, a class that I think is going to reshape the dynasty landscape, much like the tight end or much like the running back position, is this year's 2025 rookie class of tight ends. Nobody better to chop that up with than my main man, Snoog. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Dad, and I love that you highlighted other than the running back class, because I think the strengths of this class is definitely running back and tight end. I am coming away with really liking the top 3 to 4 wide receivers in this class. I think this is just underrated class all around, but the tight end and running back is definitely in this space and in the process of reshaping the landscape for both, because running back and tight end right now, you kind of have a lot of those veterans kind of hanging on. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, some of Jonnu Smith, some of these other vets hanging on, being still productive. But we got 3, maybe even 4 guys that are going to come in and be top 10 to 12 dynasty tight ends right from the get. I think 2 first-round tight ends go in this year's draft, and I think there's going to be 2 to 4 of them taken on in round 2, even round 3 of the draft. So I'm excited to jump into this and talk about some of these guys, because the top 3 especially, damn good. So let's jump into it.
And there's 5 dynasty tight ends right now that you and I both agree are what we would say are foundational pieces. It's Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. They are a cut above everybody else right now, in my opinion, especially Brock. Sam Laporta, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson. We want to prop up Dalton Kincaid, and after the playoff game last night, my Bills lose, and I got a sick part in my stomach. I think Tucker Kraft is a low-key buy for me, someone that's going to move up over this offseason, but then you're looking at Njoku, Andrews, Jonnu, Kelsey's falling down, Pitts. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty at this tight end position, which is why I'm so excited about this year's class. We're going to get some new guys that are looking like they are going to be going round 1, which is fantastic. The first guy, and I think the prize of this class, in my opinion, is Tyler Warren from Penn State. 24 years old, 6'6", 257, Snoop. 6'6". This dude, both him and Loveland are massive. We're looking at 6'6", 257, 6'5", 245. So these are some big prototypical tight ends. 104 receptions last year. You saw him, what he was able to do at Penn State, and 12 touchdowns. So he's an absolute, red zone threat. He's a playmaker with the ball in his hands. He's someone high points really well. Amazing catch rate is. I mean, he is going to, when he tests out at the combine, he has an absolutely massive, catch radius. And we look at what guys have done at Penn State at the combine. I think Tyler Warren's going to be another guy that ups his stock already right now. I mean, people are starting to, every mock that you and I have covered so far, with Brugler and with Kuiper, they both have him going 14 to the Colts. We don't love the landing spot, but if a tight end goes in the top 20, you're looking at an absolute legit prospect. So sell me a little bit more here on Tyler Warren.
Yeah, he's a guy that can play inline. He can play slot. He can play out wide. You can put him in the backfield. He's as versatile as you get. I said this backstage. Dad knows I love these comps, but he gives me like if George Kittle and Taysom Hill had a kid. Like that's the type of skill set he has. He's that big 6'5", 6'6", prototypical guy that can beat you in the seam, beat you in line. He can block. He's physical beast, very dominant as a blocker. And then he can also line up in the backfield and get, he had 40-plus rushing attempts, 200-plus yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns this year. So this guy can play everywhere and do anything that you want him on the field. I see 9 to the Saints is a good spot. I see 14, like you said. I see Colts taking him there. I see so many teams that could take him from, honestly, 8 to, 17, 18. You could even see the Chargers trade up and get him if they don't want Loveland, even though I think they go for Loveland. I just think Warren's skill set, I know he's 24 years old, so he's a bit on the older side, but if you just look at what he did this year, like you said, he had 100-plus receptions, 1,200-plus receiving yards, 12 total touchdowns, 8 in the air, 4 on the ground, 2.77 yards per route run. He was the entire Penn State offense in the passing game. So, on a team that was top 4 team in college football all year, he was the best player on offense, the number 1 receiver by far. He broke a bunch of records. He had a 93.3 PFF grade. Everyone's overthinking it. All the analytics dudes out there, year 5 breakout, whatever. He was good last year too. If you look at what he did, he had 400 plus yards and 7 touchdowns in an offense that never threw the football and had like no passing yards. So you always got to look at like the circumstance and what they do in that circumstance. Like if a team doesn't pass a lot, but they have majority of the passing yards or the receiving yards, then that's something good that you're looking for. And Tyler Warren has that. For me, the day he's drafted, he's going to be a top 5 to 6 dynasty tight end for me. Like that simple.
Yeah, I mean, his versatility and what he can bring to an offense, I think, is going to be absolutely huge if he gets into the right landing spot where a guy is able to use him properly. I love your George Kittle comp. A lot of people are really lazy, and we were talking about this. If you're old school, it's Dallas Clark plus, right? That's his floor is a Dallas Clark plus. His ceiling is a Kittle light, and I think that's going to ultimately. We talked about it. I mean, I'm already day one, Snoog, ready to move him as my tight end 6. I think you could argue maybe you play around with Kittle and Hawkinson, but I'm not ready there yet. I mean, they in my opinion were better prospects coming out and have shown it. But I'd prefer him over Njoku, Kincaid, Andrews, Jonnu, Tucker. It's going to reshuffle.
Let's play a game. Let's play a game. He's drafted to the Saints. Where do you have him in your dynasty rankings?
Still 6.
Chargers.
5A. I think if
he's the Chargers, I think I'd put him ahead of Laporta at tight end 3 for me.
Ooh,
I really do. I really do.
Bold. I like that. See, Laporta is just in the right space.
Colts and Saints to me, he's like where you said, like 5, 6.
Yeah,
so like that's kind of what I expect. But
and the tricky part there is like where he is going to go in your Superflex draft. I think right now I'm comfortable at 109 because the running backs are so good. You're going to have the 2 quarterbacks. If it's 0.75 tight end premium, I mean, last year we were mostly everybody was too low on Brock Bowers. If it's 0.75, I mean, we could see it isn't going to be a Brock Bowers type ascendance, but I think you're going to see a guy that's going to be a top 12 tight end in redraft year 1. So in Dynasty, he could easily move up to tight end 3 by the end of the first year, by mid-year. That's just where this Dynasty landscape is. If you're tearing down off of Laporta right now, this seems to be the play to me is like you and I are always trying to tear off of Laporta at this point. And if we go Laporta right now, I was blown away because I saw on Dynasty Data Lab, he's going the equivalent of the 102. And I threw up in my mouth because that's not where he belongs. And I have him valued at the 106. And I think they lost Ben Johnson. If I could trade Sam Laporta for the 109 plus, I think 108 plus and get myself Tyler Warren. I mean, I think we keep talking about it at this stage in the draft, the way people are looking at this particular draft class. It's not warranted, but they should be. No pun intended on the warranted. But the values don't line up. I was looking at that the other day, and it was like the 101 says it's equivalent of Marvin Harrison Jr. and the 102 Laporta, and like the 107 was the equivalent of Jamison Williams. Like these things don't add up. ADP at this point in the season does not match the actual player value. So if I can give up Laporta in a second and get the 108 plus a 26 or 27 first at this stage in the game, people don't know who Warren is yet, but they will. He's going to be a household name. He's going to be phenomenal at the next level, and you're going to be glad you bought. And everybody last year, Snoop, they said the same thing. We were talking about it. And I got mocked heavily on this, but we were saying trade Sam Laporta for whatever pick Brock Bowers is going to be, and give Laporta and a second for Bowers and a first. And people are like, you're just trying to pick the next guy. And that's what we do, right? Like we assess this. And I mean, a lot of guys have been making comments on some of our YouTube threads because you guys are a little bit new to this saying, well, why would you have Ted McMillan say you're going to come in day 1 and he's going to dominate if he goes to New England? I mean, they have this player, that player. We are trying to get ahead of the curve. That's what we do at Smash Acceptance. Last year, and I made the trade on multiple occasions where I gave up Laporta plus a little bit and I got Bowers plus more. And now I think we take Laporta or Hawkinson or Kittle and we do the opposite, trying to get to where Tyler Warren is right now. And the closer we get to draft day, the more we'll understand that. But now you got to start formulating some of those plans.
Yeah, and exactly. That's how it works. And even we'll talk about the next guy here, Loveland, and even Fannin in a second. You could do it with all 3 of these guys. I mean, they're the only tight ends in the class to post 90-plus PFF grades this year. in general in their careers, and they're absolutely elite. They're complete players, all good after the catch, all good athletes, all good at in line, good in the slot, especially Fannin and Warren. Like, they were super versatile at their colleges. They were their whole offenses. That's what we want to look for. That's how it was for Trey McBride at Colorado State. That's how it was for Sam Laporta at Iowa. Like, that's how you want to look for a good tight end prospect. Like, how involved were they in college? Because tight ends don't really do anything in college, like, typically ever. So that's one thing that I always look for in my process. And I look for versatility, and these guys all have it. So transitioning off guys that we know what they are to take that shot on a guy that can maybe challenge like a McBride or challenge Laporta for tight end 3 in this in the dynasty landscape is something that you want to do, because you're going to accumulate more draft picks and more value to your roster elsewhere, as well as still get a stud tight end. So we do this all the time. It's tearing off, right? It's tearing off, making a prediction, and that's kind of how we go about it. So
yeah, and it's always easier on draft day, right? Like, you see Tyler Warren's at 108 and he's still on the block, and you're like, okay, well, somebody's going to like Laporta. You know, they're going to like him more than where we're at there, so I'm going to make that kind of trade. And other times it's trying to manipulate the draft board right now. If you're sitting at 202, you are not going to get Tyler Warren. You need to trade up to 108 right now. You know, you need to make that move to get yourself into position. And right now it's cheaper to move up than it's ever been. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot less expensive to cheer down later. I feel like once this class, Snoog and I have been saying, like, honestly, 103 to 108 are almost the same value at this point before we start to get draft picks and start to move into that area. So I'm excited for Tyler Warren. I think he's going to be a phenomenal prospect. The other guy is Colston Loveland. So Colston Loveland, a lot younger, just 20 years old, 6'5", 245, 56 receptions this year. Someone that, you know, again, very high PFF grade, someone that's very good on yards per route run, I think is a lot of times I look at comps and I try to look at things, and people are saying, and this is a little bit more old school as well, but more Tyler Eifert. And Tyler Eifert was a tight end.
I like that comp. I saw that too.
He was a tight end 1 for multiple seasons in Cincinnati back in the day. And I think Colston Loveland isn't as versatile as Warren, but he is he's got great hands. He actually, when I watch him, he can make things happen after the catch. At his size, I think is a phenomenal athlete, and I think blocks well. He's going to be on the field at all points, and I think that's really important in today's NFL. Is, you know, Warren and Loveland are both good blocking as well, so they're going to be on the field as much as possible. Some of the other guys we're going to talk about later, they're more of a inline kind of guy. We're going to try to get them off. We're going to try to create some mismatches. But Colston Loveland is another guy that I think day one is inside the top 8 to 10 dynasty tight ends.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, he's a guy 2.6 plus yards per route run. His career yard per route run numbers at Michigan were absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he hit 2.5 plus twice, and his freshman year wasn't good, but he still had a pretty decent freshman year getting on the field. But I mean, his sophomore year was really good. I mean, he had 650 plus yards, 4 touchdowns, posted an 80 plus PFF grade, just a guy that kind of broke it in, started playing a lot more. But this year, he was their whole offense. Like, he literally was their whole offense as a receiver. I think it's the next best receiver, had like 250 receiving yards. So that's all you have to see. Like, 582 isn't a ton, but for a tight end, it is. 1 and 2, when the offense can't throw the ball or aren't throwing the ball a lot, that's key. So he's dominating the market percentage of yards there for the tight end and for receiving for Michigan. Good yards per out run numbers, and he had a 90 plus PFF grade, still 20 years old, prototypical tight end size. Another one for me. He's probably going to slot in right around that tight end 6-7 range. I think he's going to be above everybody after Hawkinson. So I think right now in the Discord, shout out the Discord. Make sure you guys check that out. We're doing all of our work there, all our dynasty rankings, all of our trade advice. We have a chat roll in there with like 550 plus members talking shop 24/7, helping each other out with trades and all that good stuff. So definitely something to check out if you want some more of our work and you want a community where you can talk to a bunch of other people, get in leagues, talk about trades, talk about anything that you want, fantasy football related or NFL related. There's the link right there. Dad just pinned on the screen, but I have Brock Bowers above the 101. Then I have the 101 above Trey McBride. After that, tight end 3, Sam Laporta. I have all the way 102 through 108 over Sam Laporta. So I have Sam Laporta just above the 109, same tier. Then I have 110 right behind Laporta. And then after that, I have Kittle and Hawkinson right after the 111. So it's like gonna age out perfectly for how we're kind of expecting like Warren to go in that 110, 111 range, just right in that same tier with George Kittle and Hawkinson. And then even that like 111, 112 range, same tier with Kittle and Hawkinson, where we could see Loveland go in a tight end premium league. So pretty much that tier is going to probably be Laporta, Kittle, Hawkinson, Tyler Warren, and Colston Loveland for me. Post-draft is what I'm expecting if they get first-round draft capital. Who knows what's going to happen at the combine, all that good stuff, but I'm expecting first-round draft capital. I'm expecting the Chargers to draft Colston Loveland, hopefully. If they do, I think I'm going to have him over Kittle and Hawkinson, and he's probably going to be like tight end 4 or 5-ish for me.
Yeah, and that it just creates another window here. I mean, we're going to have the Senior Bowl soon. We're going to see, Harold Fannon's going to show out there. We're going to see guys' values are just they're going to jump at certain areas. And This is the time of year where you are not trying to trade your draft picks. You're not trying to trade your rookie picks now because they're only going to ascend. And a lot of people are uneducatedly, I'm not sure that's even a word, but they're just blindly saying, well, this class sucks because it doesn't have the quarterback.
QBs, yeah.
You
can go ahead and draft rookie QBs. I'll trade for them.
You were spoiled last year. Like if you guys are new to Dynasty, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix. These guys aren't in every class. I mean, some classes, you get a Kenny Pickett year. This is not that. You're still going to get arguably at least 2 top 15 to 18 Dynasty starters at the quarterback position. And I think
you're going to get a Bo Nix. You're going to get a Michael Penix.
You're going to be in that area. The next guy that I want to talk about, and we just said, is Harold Fannin Jr., still just 20 years old, 6'4", 240. Snook, this is the guy who you look at the yardage of the other guys, 1,500 yards. This is someone that 3.76 yards per route run. You almost think it's a typo. His ability he had more broken tackles than anyone the last 2 years. This is just a dog, right? Like, why is Harold Fannin below the other two for you? Where this is where there isn't a dynasty ceiling where a guy like Harold Fannin Jr. could become the tight end one of this class 2 or 3 years down the road. But why isn't he there right now?
I think for me, it's more of the draft capital and kind of where he's coming from with Bowling Green. Like Ashton Junty went to Boise State. He brought them to the college football playoffs. They were a good team because of Ashton Junty, and he was absolutely elite his whole career in college football, and he's projected to be a top 12 draft pick. Like I just want to see the NFL buy into Harold Fannin like we are. If he's a first round pick, he could be tight end 1 in this class. Like he could be. He's really good, really versatile. He's a guy, I mean, like you said, 1,500 plus yards, 100 plus receptions, 11 total touchdowns. If you look at who he played against too, against Texas A&M and Penn State at the beginning of the year, he had 8 plus receptions, 140 plus yards, and a touchdown in both of those games. So he was phenomenal against the best of the best. He was dominating Bowling Green's offense. He was their entire offense, and he's a good athlete, and he's 20 years old. Usually a player like that coming from Bowling Green, he's going to be a guy that probably doesn't declare right away, and he's probably a 4th or 5th year guy, but no, he's an early declare, 20 years old. He's a guy that had a 96.3 PFF grade and a 90.7 in his sophomore season. So he had back-to-back 90-plus years. I'm not sure, but 96.3 sounds damn near like one of the best tight end PFF grades probably ever. I know Ashton Junty's was like 97, and that was like one of the best, highest graded players ever. So Fannin's got to be up there. And the 3.7 yards per out run number is just ridiculous. And 2.62 the time before. His career yards after catch per reception is like 8 plus.
Yeah, he's a dog.
He's Jonnu Smith on steroids. Like that's his comp. Like,
I like that.
He goes to the Dolphins in like early round 2. He's going to be phenomenal in that system. Like he needs to go somewhere like a McVay system, a McDaniel. Like he needs to go somewhere with a versatile scheme and like a skill set of a coach, and like he needs to go where a coach can utilize his skill set. He goes there, he's going to be a top 5 dynasty tight end. If he goes to a team where he's just a guy out there running routes and there's no scheme for him, that's where it gets a little risky with a guy like this. Like we saw with Jonnu Smith, like for a while he was kind of just a guy. Finally goes to a team where he fits a skill set and he was nasty. So that's where I'm at with Fannin. Stud prospect. Analytics are off the chart. Analytics guys are going to love him.
Yeah, breaking FBS records with 1,555 receiving yards, 117 receptions. Honestly, 119.6 yards per game, all of those broke FBS records. I mean, he is going to be something special at the next level. We talked to a lot of guys in the community. We got all into 22 FF says Antonio Gates vibes right here. Again, we're throwing out old school tight end names. We're talking Dallas Clark. We're talking Antonio Gates. So you 40-plus-year-old guys like me, you're like, this is your heyday. But I think you're going to have another. And this is a guy that I think ultimately goes inside the top 12 dynasty tight ends as well. And I think that speaks a lot to the landscape as well as this class is 3 guys in the top 12. Last year, we were not saying that. We said Bowers is going to be number 1. But after that, we said, Ben Sinnott, based on where they're at, might crack into that area. He's someone that we like. By the way, I'm still in on him. I mean, I still think Zach Ertz is a free agent. I think he walks, and I think this is the year where you see Ben Sinnott, where if you drafted him at 212, 302 in that range, like we were saying last year, you're going to end up getting a really nice tight end here.
Ben Sinnott, for what my grade and my film review on him, he slot in at tight end 5 in this class for me. That's how good this tight end class is. Yeah, I have Gunnar Helm, the guy we'll talk about next, over him too.
Because and I'm glad you said that. Like when you talk about the 3 big guys at the top, everybody knows about them. Everybody's already got them on their radar.
They're tight end 1s in most classes, most normal tight end classes. They're probably fighting for tight end 1 or 2.
And all 3 of them in that 90-plus PFF grade, all 3 of them in, guys that are producing like crazy. Gunnar Helm's the next guy. He's a little bit of a little bit more unknown. Gunnar Helm's 22 years old, 6'5", 250, 60 receptions this year. The yards per route run go way down to 1.63, where the other guys we were looking at, all 3 of them up above absolute dogs when it comes to, yards per route run at the tight end position. The PFF grade goes from in the 90s down to the 73, but this is why you're going to get some value on Gunnar Helm and Mason Taylor. Tell me first on Gunnar Helm why you think he's the biggest sleeper in this particular class.
Yeah, one of my good friends is a big Texas fan, so I got to watch a lot of Gunnar Helm the past year or two. He reminds me a lot of Hunter Henry, and I think that's a good comp for him for a ceiling outcome. He's just a guy. I mean, he was 60-plus receptions, 780-plus yards on Texas's offense this year. This is a team that was a national contender. They were one of the best teams in the country. Good offense, a lot of mouths to feed. Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. They throw a lot of bubble screens to their running backs. So there's just a lot going on that offense. And he showed up. I mean, he had 60-plus receptions, 780-plus yards, and 7 total touchdowns. 1.6-plus yards per route run's not horrible for a tight end, too. That's something to keep an eye on. PFF grade wasn't great, but he's a guy comes in prototypical tight end size, 6'5", 250-plus pounds. He's a good athlete, too. He posted 7-plus yards after catch per reception this year, 6.9 last year. So he's really good after the catch. I really like him because I think he's the type of player that gets day 2 draft capital, goes in round 2 or 3 to a good situation and can gain value. He could be like a Jatavian Sanders type player in an offense where he's playing and gains a bunch of value in year 2 or year 3, and you're getting him in the 3rd or 4th round of a rookie draft. That's where I'm at with Gunnar Helm. I also loved his play style. I think he's just a good athlete. He's a baller. He goes out there, he makes every catch. He can hurdle people. He's a good he's one of those guys that just passes the film and the eye test just watching him play. So definitely Gunnar Helm is one of those tight end sleepers to go after in this year's rookie class.
Yeah, the other one, I mean, obviously Gunnar Helm at Texas, and we're going to talk about Mason Taylor at LSU, 20 years old, 6'5", 255. All 5 of these guys, these are prototypical tight end size that we're looking for. 55 receptions, 546 yards, someone that, again, in that 69.5 PFF grade, so a little bit lower. Mason Taylor is someone that was, used to running a pro-style offense, someone that has a lot of upside. Why do you like him in this class? And like you said, I mean, so you're saying in last year's class and combined, I mean, Bowers would be 1. We're saying all 5 of these guys would be over our tight end 2 from last season.
Yeah. For me, yeah. I mean, Mason Taylor is another one. Broke out as a true freshman, 400-plus yards and 3 touchdowns. If you're getting into that 400, 500-plus yard range as a tight end in college, especially on good offenses like LSU, Texas, Penn State, Michigan, I love to see that range because it means you're involved, especially as a true freshman or a sophomore. Early on, you're involved as a tight end. That's a position that teams really struggle to utilize that position, right? Especially in college football. You need a real mastermind of an offensive coordinator or a head coach that utilizes that position. But Mason Taylor's another one. Like, you hit prototypical size. I love that every one of these top 5 tight ends that we just named all hit 50 plus receptions and 540 plus yards this year. All found the end zone. I mean, they all had good breakout ages. So it's definitely one of the better classes that I've watched. It's deep too. I think like a Mason Taylor and a Gunnar Helm are guys that can be a tight end 3 in a good tight end class, or a normal tight end class, maybe fight for tight end 2 spot, especially Gunnar. But those guys are absolute loaded dart throws in that second, third, fourth round range for rookie drafts, probably that third, fourth round range. But for Gunnar and Mason Taylor, 0.75 tight end premium, I'd rather take a shot on a Gunnar Helm or a Mason Taylor than wide receiver 17 in a bad wide receiver class, right? Like, so that's where you kind of have to gauge that and understand the value difference in the proposition of your leagues. In tight end premium, go after these guys because it's a good tight end class, and you don't know much about them because of the Harold Fannins, the Colston Lovelands, and the Tyler Warrens.
Yeah, and you spoke about that. I love what you said there about the wide receivers, because Snoog and I are firm believers that when you look at this draft class, I mean, you have Ted McMillan at the top. If Travis Hunter is a wide receiver only, he is the clear-cut 102 with the wide receiver 1 of the class, moving Ted down 1. We got Luther Burden and Emeka Ibuka like right there. I mean, these are
those four. Those 4 is a very good wide receiver prospect.
Those 4,
I think they're very good.
They all have top 15 dynasty wide receiver upside.
Yep.
I love Trey Harris as well. I love Trey Harris. I think he's in that area. But then it's a matter of like, we're going to see what happens. We're going to see where we're at. I think the other interesting part about that is if we start going into 0.75 tight end premium, how close are we putting Warren, Colston, and Fannin in comparison to those other 5 wide receivers? I mean, I think I'm still taking Hunter and Tet over Warren, even at 0.75. I think the only way that I would actually prefer Burden and Ibuka. I mean, that's where these tight ends are fantastic, but I don't think people are paying enough attention to how good these top 4 wide receivers are in this class.
I think I'm taking those 4 receivers over all the tight ends in this class, unless it's very, very heavy tight end premium, or unless one of them goes to the Chargers or like a dream landing spot where they're going to be utilized right away. But I think you're taking all 3 of the tight ends we just named, Warren, Loveland, and Fannin, over any wide receiver after the top 4. And even in like a 0.5 tight end premium, I'm gonna do it. So they're gonna be in that late first to early second range, fighting with all those running backs that get good landing spots and good draft capital. You're gonna have to gauge, and we're gonna help everybody putting out content, putting out kind of finding our value spots and where we like to move back or cheer up or whatever it is. We'll find the value pockets, but that's going to be the tough part for a lot of people is, do I take Harold Fannin Jr., who just went early round 2 to the New England Patriots with Drake May, or do I take Trey Harris that went late round 1 to this team, or early round 2 to this team, to the Saints, or Devin Neal that went round 2 to this team? So that's where it's going to be tough, and we're going to be here to help you guys figure that all out. But these 3 guys, like we said, they're going to slot in with those top 5 tight ends that we just mentioned in the landscape for sure.
Yeah, there was one other sleeper there that you and I talked about before we even started. We were talking old school names. We talked about Dallas Clark, Antonio Gates, and then obviously there's a Rondé Gadsden, his son now. Obviously from Syracuse, another guy that has some upside in this class. So what do you think about him as well? Because we were talking about him backstage, and then one of the comments just popped up. Let's talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, he's a guy that could be tight end 4 in this class for me. I just want to see the NFL buy into him. I know he's a converted wide receiver to tight end, big frame. I think he's like 6'5" or 6'5", 240. This is a guy that posted, 2.3 plus yards per route run as a true sophomore at Syracuse, 60 plus receptions, 900 plus yards. Then I think he was injured in 2023 and missed like the entire season. And then he converted to tight end, and he put up another 70 plus receptions, 900 plus yards, 7 touchdowns, 82.3 PFF grade, played like 50% slot, like 40% inline. So he played kind of all over the field. Good yak player. He's just another guy that good production, versatility. If you're not versatile as a tight end, you're probably not going to see the field early on. Unless you're like this elite receiver or an elite blocker, you kind of have to be a little bit of both. You have to play the slot. You got to play inline. You have to win all over the field. This tight end class, they win all over the field. very good tight end class. I haven't gotten through Mason Taylor, Gunnar Helm, and Oronde Gazdon's film completely. I just had glimpses of them. So that tight end 4 to 6 spot's kind of open. I'm leaning Gunnar 4, but Taylor and Gadsden could be a fight for me. So I'm excited. I'll put those rankings out. They're in the Discord already, but I'll put those out probably within the week or two.
Yeah, the next part I want to talk about real quick is, and we've said this, I want to talk about the best landing spots for these guys. I mean, starting with Tyler Warren, a couple of the spots that really would kind of excite me a little bit, the Rams, the Broncos. I mean, even the Colts, but I think it's just that seems like that's where everybody wants him to go. So I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think he falls to the Chargers area. Are there spots where you're like, this would, I mean, the Rams would be one that would really jump his stock a lot for me. Maybe, I mean, the Broncos are looking for a secondary type wide receiver. You know, if they don't take another wide receiver in the draft and they go with the tight end, I think he would get a big bump there as well. So sell me a little bit on some of the key landing spots. We talk about with the running backs. With the tight ends, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, Chargers are going to be looking in that Loveland, Fannin area. You know, Dallas Goedert's getting a little bit older, so I think the Eagles might be looking for a tight end. Tennessee, obviously looking for a tight end. What are some other spots where you're like, you know what, this guy right here? I mean, Jets, Bengals, Commanders. There's got to be a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah, I really like the Giants landing spot. I think that would be really good as like that number 2 right there with Neighbors and maybe in that early round 2 range. I love the Saints landing spot. You've seen Jawan Johnson be a guy there that's produced from time to time really well. That's a good landing spot. I really like the Chargers landing spot the best. Like that is like dream scenario. Colts have a good landing spot, in my opinion, just going to be the safety blanket for a broken Anthony Richardson that isn't very accurate. The Broncos landing spot is right there with the Chargers for me, though. I think those two are the best. Sean Payton is known for his tight ends. I mean, with Jimmy Graham, you had him forever, and he was an elite tight end. So I could see the Broncos going after like a Tyler Warner or Colston Loveland type player. Same with the Chargers. But other than that, like there's the Rams, love that landing spot. I could see the Texans upgrading from like a Schultz. Stroud's a guy that loves throwing to his tight end, so I could see them getting like a Harold Fannin as like a dynamic, like underneath guy in round 2. There's a lot of good landing spots, I think. It's all about the versatility, scheme fit, and stuff, though. And I think like a lot of the teams that we just mentioned need a tight end, and they could use that upgrade as the league continues to kind of change into that play action, really run heavy offensive style, and like versatility, and like using your players to maximize their skill set. I think the tight end's starting to become more and more a thing because you get the play action going, and then the tight end's the sweet spot every single time. So that's where I'm at right now. You could see the Chiefs replace, like imagine the Chiefs replace Kelsey and go get Loveland in that late round 1 range. Like so many landings. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There's so many spots that could be like, oh, that makes sense. So.
And that's what bothers me about everybody getting so down on this class again, is like we haven't even started to assess landing spots. We're looking at these mocks and they're between 9 and 11 guys going round 1. And we're not even talking about when we have the running back landscape. Once these running backs start getting landing spots, Snoog, it's a good 15 to 18 deep. Your second round is just going to get better and better, where you're talking about the second round, and you know there's at least 2 quarterbacks going in that second round, and there's at least 1 to 2 tight ends that are going to go in there, and you're going to see people reaching on wide receivers. You're going to see a loaded running back second round. Your early 3s, your mid to late seconds, they're all increasing in value. Don't trade them now unless you're getting elite level proven assets that you're like, okay, I'm going to go buy an Alvin Kamara here because I know this is the final piece of the puzzle for my offense. So Perfect timing. Check out all of our other YouTube shows that we've been doing, all the podcasts that we've been doing on the rookie class. We're going to be doing this. We got live stream trades tomorrow night. That's every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.